The Pittsburgh Steelers were not in the playoffs this year, and I think that left some question marks, but really some negative energy about where they are and how far they may need to go. But I think the first round of the NFL playoffs gave them plenty of light. What's going on, everybody? I'm Noah Strackbein. Thank you for jumping on to Steelers to Go, your daily to go cup of Pittsburgh Steelers news and analysis. Find us on youtube.com/all Steelers talk or anywhere you get your podcasts. And today I'm here to bring some positive light to a day that I think a lot of people looked at and said, man, this is a negative for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Everybody sat around, friends, family, social media, doesn't matter. There was two debates or topics of conversation that were being had all day during the wild card round of the playoffs. And I had them too. I mean, the Steelers aren't playing, so I'm sitting on my couch. I came back home. I was talking to my dad. I was talking to my buddies, and we're going through the playoffs. We're watching everything unfold, all the chaos. And there's two topics of conversation that are being had. One, maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers do need to fire Matt Canada because they need an offense that can keep up with some of these games that are just crazy down the stretch. And two, well, maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers would have won a game if they snuck their way in and they faced the Bills or they faced the Bengals. Maybe the Steelers would have won those games. And I think we need to focus on the second argument because I think the second argument is true. The Steelers do need to fire Matt Canada. That's not really a question. At this point, there isn't a solid argument on why they shouldn't fire Matt Canada. I think people just look at it and go, oh, well, they won down the stretch. Yeah, their defense won down their stretch. Kenny Pickett came up with some big plays, and Najee Harris turned into who Najee Harris should be. But really, the Steelers didn't do anything super impressive in the second half of the season outside of win games. It wasn't there is a super bright future for the Steelers going on in Pittsburgh. There wasn't really any of that. There is a bright future in Pittsburgh, and I think we do see that, but it wasn't because of Matt Canada, and it wasn't because of the play calling. It was because of the guys on the field. So the Steelers should fire Matt Canada. That's not even a question. But when it comes to whether or not they should look at the wild card round of the playoffs and look at scores like 31-30 in the Jags' amazing comeback over the Chargers, or 34-31 in the Dolphins' fall to the Bills, or 24-17 in the Bengals' Ravens, and use that as a negative to say the Steelers wouldn't keep up, I would use it as the opposite and say, well, Skylar Thompson did his thing against the Bills because they made mistakes. Tyler Huntley and a strong running game nearly took out the Bengals. The Steelers have a strong running game. The Steelers have a defense that forces mistakes. They have the things that keep these teams alive in games where they shouldn't be alive. So if they entered these games and they had to face the Bills and they had to face the Bengals, you'd have to believe that they'd have a pretty good shot. Why? Because it's not about Matt Canada when it comes to these games. That's not the issue. The concern isn't, oh, can they score 40 points? The concern is, can they match the production that they're going to get on every other facet of football? The defense, the running game, the coaching. And I think Mike Tomlin, I think Kenny Pickett, I think Najee Harris, and I think that defense can do enough. And I think that's what I took away yesterday, is that we have to look past the negativity when it comes to, oh, well, Matt Canada's still around. Where is the ceiling? How low is it? It's definitely lower than it would be without him. I'm not going to sit here and say that the Steelers are going to go win a Super Bowl with Matt Canada as their offensive coordinator. But I think that the AFC wildcard round taught us, well, maybe they will, even if it's not because of Matt Canada. There are names out there. You know, I had a conversation yesterday about whether or not Danny Dimes is the answer in New York. And the consensus was, you don't have to be the answer. You just have to be good enough. I don't even know if Matt Canada is good enough. What I do know is that the players around him are good enough. and that they will continue to win. That's not a question. It's never going to come down to, are the Pittsburgh Steelers that bad because their players are that bad? Their players were that bad at the beginning of 2022, but this was a new team. You have one of the youngest offenses in football. You take out Derek Watt, and their age is ridiculously young. You have a defense that dealt with the biggest injury in football to TJ Watt. And you can make an argument of, oh, well, if a quarterback goes down, no, teams still win if quarterbacks go down. They don't win if TJ Watt goes down. That's proven. You're dealing with a lot of moving pieces, a lot of guys that needed to get integrated with each other, a lot of cohesion that needed to happen that didn't happen until late in the season. But as you saw it all come together, as you saw Kenny Pickett grow, as you saw Najee Harris get healthy, as you saw Jaylen Warren and George Pickens develop, and Deontay Johnson find his rhythm with the quarterbacks, and TJ Watt return to health and the defense start to play well, you saw what the Steelers are capable of doing. They're a talented team. They're a team on the rise, no doubt. They have a bad offensive coordinator, really bad offensive coordinator, but an offensive coordinator that led them to 30 points against the Bengals. And I mean, if he needed to do it again, maybe he could. And maybe they would have won that game instead of losing it like Baltimore did. Or maybe they would have fought off the Bills and turned those mistakes into points, because I truly believe that the second time around, Kenny Pickett isn't playing the same game that he played only his first start of his NFL career. How far this team has gone is crazy, and how far it will go is even crazier. And you have to focus on that. You have to focus on the positive of, well, the Steelers are a young developing team, but they took major strides this year, and year 2 is usually when these good things happen. Year 3 is usually when these good things happen. Joe Burrow turned the Bengals into a Super Bowl contender in year 2. In year 1, the Bengals weren't that great. I get it. He suffered an ACL injury, but overall, the Bengals couldn't overcome it. The Steelers couldn't overcome the fact that they needed time to develop in 2022. So in 2023, the expectation should be, well, they should definitely make the playoffs, and maybe they should make some noise. And there are key points to this. You do have to find an offensive coordinator, because that's how you max out potential. And the whole keeping Matt Canada because you're nervous about the development of Kenny Pickett is the worst excuse in the book. The Steelers are overall looking like they would compete, though. And even if they wouldn't have won a Super Bowl this year, and even if the Brock Purdy magic wouldn't have came with Kenny Pickett, and maybe it would have, you never know, you have to feel good that the Steelers have a shot next season, because the AFC wildcard round taught us that this division isn't as good as we think it is. It's not as top heavy as we wanted to believe. Yeah, these guys look really good in the regular season, but the regular season is just the regular season. It's all about the dance that matters. And if you get into the dance, what are you capable of doing? Well, Josh Allen's capable of throwing a lot of interceptions and turning the ball over. The Bengals are capable of winning, and they look very poised, no doubt. But you put a strong running game out there, and they're having a hard time stopping it. And you put a really tough defense against them, and they're not going to score 100 points. That's what we saw. The Los Angeles Chargers might be farther away than closer to a Super Bowl. The Jacksonville Jaguars are on the rise, but they're a team that you could take advantage of. The Baltimore Ravens got to figure out what they're doing at quarterback. And right now, it doesn't look promising for the Pittsburgh Steelers or for the Baltimore Ravens. It looks very promising for the Pittsburgh Steelers, because even if Tyler Huntley's good, J.K. Dobbins has a hard time staying healthy. And if somebody goes down, anybody goes down, that team isn't Super Bowl bound. And I have a hard time believing that Lamar Jackson, A, will re-sign with this team, or B, stay healthy enough to go win them a Super Bowl. The door is just so open for the Steelers moving forward, and you got to feel good about that. I think the wild card round of the playoffs was a positive, and a lot of people made it a positive, and I'm proud of them. And then some people, wanted to focus on the fact that the Steelers wouldn't have been able to put up 30 points. And I agree with that argument as well. I think that the concern there is real and justified. But let's focus on the good. Let's focus on the positive, and let's focus on the fact that the AFC is not as dominant at the top of it as we wanted to believe. And that leaves plenty of hope for the Pittsburgh Steelers next season when they're a year into creating the next form of a Super Bowl run.